policy, and I've been at MIT this last 8 months, and we're going to learn a lot together about blockchain and money. We're going to have a little bit of fun here and see what we're going to do. So we're talking about blockchain and money. That's where we are. By the way, I do cold call.
The following content is provided under a Creative Commons license. Your support will help MIT OpenCourseWare continue to offer high-quality educational resources for free. To make a donation or to view additional materials from hundreds of MIT courses, visit MIT OpenCourseWare at ocw.mit.edu.
Welcome. Welcome. If you have a desire to learn a little bit about blockchain and its intersection with the world of finance and money, and you're looking for 15.s12, you're in the right place. If you're here to not do that and just hang out and have a good time, I guess you still hopefully are in the right place, because we're going to have a good time this semester. My name is Gary Gensler. I'm a senior lecturer here at MIT Sloan. I'm also an advisor over at the MIT Media Lab. And I've spent a lifetime around the world of finance and money and public policy. And I've been at MIT this last 8 months, and we're going to learn a lot together about blockchain and money. We're going to have a little bit of fun here and see what we're going to do. So we're talking about blockchain and money. That's where we are. By the way, I do cold call. I do call on you. So if you want to leave now, I understand. Because I want to have an interaction a little bit about it. So my first question for the class, for everyone, whether registered or not, how many of you have ever owned a cryptocurrency? Wait, let's see. The odds, it seems like it's about 45% of you or so. All right, so it gives me the line, you want to keep your hand up long. And how many of you have ever worked on any blockchain-related projects in an entrepreneurial setting, a corporate setting, anywhere? All right, good. So about a third in the room. Good. All right. So you all know probably more than I do, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to always start every week with what are the study questions for the week. How many of you actually got the syllabus? This is not going to be graded assignment. I just have to have a sense of who actually got the syllabus. So good, many of you. And how many of you actually did the 2 readings? It's not graded. I just got to gauge the class. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Write those grades down, by the way. No. All right. So the 2 main questions for this week's lecture really is, what is blockchain and why might it be a catalyst? And I emphasize the word might it be a catalyst for change in the world of finance. We can talk about a lot about things outside of the world of finance, and blockchain may indeed have a lot of applications outside of finance, but I've chosen to try to just narrow the scope a bit. So this semester is really about blockchain and money, or blockchain and finance. And secondly, you will see index cards on every one of these round tables. One assignment by the end of the class. You can do it now or later. I would like each of you to anonymously write on the card what you want to achieve in this semester. It can be anything from this class, from learning about blockchain, from making money on Bitcoin, from, I don't care if you tell me it's meeting your future spouse. I just like, what do you want to achieve in this class? I can't help you on the third, but I will try to help you on the things I can help you on. And Sabrina and Toledo will collect them later. And next Tuesday, we'll tell you the results. What is it that you want to achieve in this class? And then we'll see at the end of the semester if we've done that. So it's just a way to help guide me, help you. So that's what we're trying to do. And so what were the 2 readings? One was a little thing I did, and one was a thing I did with some of my colleagues. And Tom, since I know you, what did you take out of the readings?
That blockchain has the potential to improve the trustability or the system of trust.
Did you have a good summer? Did you raise your hand? Did you own Bitcoin? No. Who in the class read the readings and took something different than Tom? He said there was potential. And your first name?
Ali.
Ali.
Well, I'm coming from the technical side, so on the technical side, all I see is a bunch of hype. And innovators have access to launch of Bitcoin, it's great, and I'll go for it, other than hype.
Right. Okay. How many agreed with Elon? This isn't a vote, or just 2 or 3. How many agreed with Tom? Seems more. And how many of you are too shy on the first day to put your hands up? Most. So I'm going to start and go back. The internet. How do I've come about this and sort of thought about, well, what is blockchain? What is it really about? Well, the internet started many decades ago, before most of you were born, but 1974-ish. I mean, there's some predecessors even from the late 60s. The Ethernet, which is really how 2 computers communicate. And then you had TCP/IP, which was really the internet protocol of multiple computers talking to each other. And then later on in 1990, how do we move forward? Does anybody know what HTTP is? We're at MIT. Your first name would be helpful. Eric.
It's a protocol for communicate the web content.
Web content.
Hypertext transport protocol.
Right. Do you know who's associated with the invention?
Kind of don't remember.
Anybody else? Anybody know who? It's not in the readings, right? Tim Berners-Lee. Anybody know who's associated with TCP/IP?
It's a company initiated by MIT faculty,
Good morning. Come on in.
I don't know if it was a company associated with MIT, but did serve, may have had some association with MIT. So these are the first 3 layers, and then there were companies, commercialization, 3Com and Cisco, and of course Amazon that's still around today. But there was something else going on. How do we commercialize the internet? Does anybody know what this scene is from?
This is the first pizza sold by Bitcoin.
Good thought. Good thought. First pizza sold by Bitcoin, but no.
Is it from that movie Hackers or something?
All right, movie Hackers.
from Net.
The Net. Do you know? Have you ever seen the movie? It's not a good movie. So this is the opening scene of The Net, and yes, that's Sandra Bullock. And the year is 1995. It's a cyber thriller. A president's involved, the Defense Department's involved, and so forth. But actually, Pizza Hut is associated with the very first online sale, anywhere in the world. They started something called Pizza Night. This was the screen, by the way. If you wanted to go on, you could order your pizza, but there was one problem. Does anybody know what the problem was with PizzaNet? I mean, maybe there were multiple problems. No, Alana, I've caught on you.
Couldn't pay online.
You couldn't pay online. Nobody had figured out how to move money online. You had to pay when you showed up at the pizza. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about cryptography. We're going to spend a lot of time on cryptography. It's cryptocurrencies and the like. What's your name?
Jihi.
Gigi? Jihi. What's cryptography?
I would assume that it's something cryptic.
Cryptic. All right, you got it. You got to start there. Anybody want to help Jihi out? Does anybody want to help Jihi out? Yeah, tell me your first name. We're going to figure out how to have everybody have nameplates by next week, but we'll work with Ryan and do it that way. Idea.
It's the technology or the science behind encryption and decryption codification. So how do you encrypt a particular text so that it's not readable by someone else without having the decryption?
Okay, so it's how do you encrypt something so it's not detectable by others? Or in essence, it's communications in the presence of adversaries. You have an adversary who wants the communication, you want to communicate and not let your adversaries know that communication. And this is This is true for ancient times. So in ancient times, there was something called the cipher. And this was a way that you take a piece of leather or a piece of cloth and have a lot of letters. And both sides, you encrypt and decrypt because there were different measurements of the cylinder. Has anybody seen the movie Imitation Games? All right. The Enigma machine. Now, the movie was wonderful because it said Turing cracked it, and he did help crack it in an automated way, but actually the Polish government had cracked it in the 1930s before they fell to the Germans. And Turing built on all of that and cracked it further. And then in the 1970s, and this was here at MIT to some extent, there's private key, public key cryptography, which I'm not going to dive into today, but it's the heart of Bitcoin and blockchain. It's at the heart of the internet, but it's about, the key thing is communications in the presence of adversaries. How do you keep a secret when everybody wants in and get that information? And there's a long history, and MIT's at the center of a lot of that. A lot of early cryptography failed on the internet. In the early 90s and late 80s, David Chum and others tried to do things, and we're not going to debate these today, but you all have one reading, I think it's either next week, which will give you that history, and it's worthwhile knowing about the history of failure. But cryptography is the reason why the internet works today. Does anybody want to tell me what SSL and TLS is? Do we have any computer scientists? Remind me your first name. Eric.
That's a protocol that mounts on top of the TCP/IP stack to provide encryption using asymmetric keys, which is public key infrastructure. Cryptography that secures up the layers.
Right. So it basically uses asymmetric cryptography, which we're going to talk about 2 lectures from now, but it secures the whole internet. So all of a sudden you could deliver the pizza and get a passcode. And I have to tell you, I never knew how this worked before I was at MIT. So PayPal came along in 1998. I mentioned this, a whole bunch of other digital currencies then failed. But some of these people who will read later, like we'll read Nick Szabo's piece on smart contracts later, Adam Back, who created Hashcash. Some of these innovations were what Satoshi Nakamoto later used. Some innovations which were really helpful and worked were Alipay and M-Pesa. Does anybody know what M-Pesa is?
I think it's used in Kenya as like mobile cellular enabled cash.
Right. In essence, they found out in Kenya, this was 10, 12 years ago, that people were trading mobile minutes. They were unbanked, but they had cellular phones, and they were trading their minutes as a form of currency. And Safaricom realized that and said, wait, we can help people be part of the digital economy, even if they're unbanked. And in Africa today, a half of the adult population, according to World Bank figures, is still unbanked. But half of that half has mobile phones. M-Pesa has 20 million customers in Kenya right now. So it's a form of money that's kind of swapping mobile minutes. But the riddle remained, how do you move money on the internet? Or in essence, how do you move value peer-to-peer without a centralized intermediary? And that's the core of blockchain technology. So who solved the riddle? Anybody going to tell me who solved the riddle? Who solved this riddle?
You need to plug that in.
You're wearing a T-shirt that says Quentin Tarantino. So I think Quentin Tarantino should solve a riddle. What's that? What's your name? Bruce. And who solved this riddle?
Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah. So a peer-to-peer cash. This is the actual dot top of an email that was sent out on Halloween 2008 by Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't actually know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, but it's a study question a few lectures from now to ask you to tell me who you think Satoshi Nakamoto is. So I won't ask that now.
Look at it.
And he started with a very simple sentence in his email. I've been working on a new electronic cash system that fully peer-to-peer with no trusted third party. It's kind of a modest statement. And so the question is this another internet layer? We're going to explore that this whole semester. I don't really have the answer. I don't think the best minds at MIT could really yet tell you. There are some who are maximalists and say, yes, it will be. And there are others who will say, no, no, no. And in this course, we're gonna review the minimalist and the maximalist. We're not going to try to center it in one place. But that's the key kind of question. So what is a blockchain? We're going to do this in a lot of lectures, but I'm going to try to do it in a short version. So it's time-stamped append logs, meaning you can add a little bit of information to this, and it's time-stamped. So these are these blocks being added. Satoshi did not invent blockchain. It was way earlier. Does anybody want to guess what it was? You're going to have a reading about this later, but
Probably the middle.
early 1990s.
Stuart Haber.
What's that, Medard?
Stuart Haber.
Stuart Haber. Stuart Haber worked for Bell Labs, right? So one of your assignments, it's not going to be a graded assignment, it's just going to be a fun assignment. Could any of you, I'm going to say by next Thursday, just could have some fun, find the longest, in time-wise, longest running blockchain. It's not Bitcoin. And it's been running since the mid-90s. And your clue is the New York Times. And we'll discuss it next Thursday. But this time-stamped block of data creates a database, an auditable database. And we'll talk about ledgers, particularly next week, but we'll talk about ledgers all throughout this course and how it changes the world of finance. Now, it's secured by cryptography because cryptography remembers communications and making sure adversaries can't pick you off. We're going to learn about hash functions. And hash functions are a really important part of cryptography, and initially for databases and how to search and store information in databases.
For 10 minutes.
But in this circumstances, hash functions were the way to not only append
I'm on live
next
stream.
He's on
block
live stream, but we're
to the
listening
prior
to
blocks,
this.
but really importantly, to compress data, to make it more
We can talk.
manipulable, and to verify it. And as I've written here, tamper resistance and
Are
integrity.
you on mute?
Digital signatures, which has to do the public key, private key cryptography.
They'll hear us
There's no
online.
prerequisite in this course. You do not have to have taken computer science, cryptography, algorithms. If I could learn a little bit about hash functions and asymmetric cryptography, these are the two key important sides. And we have enough computer scientists in this room that can sort us out if
This
I
is
say the wrong
a
thing.
MIT
Right, Doris?
first class in a series.
And then
of
consensus.
It's pretty interesting
So there's a
about
really
blockchain.
important part of blockchain is how do you decide who appends that next block? Because when I went back here, there's block and block. Each of these blocks, somebody has to decide who appends, who gets to pick the next block. And that's what's called consensus protocol. And there's wide debates about consensus protocol. And we'll talk a lot about consensus protocol. But in essence, it addresses something, a term called the cost of trust. And we'll talk about Byzantine generals' problems, which is another reading. The Byzantine generals' problem was laid out as a sort of mathematical game theory issue some 30 years ago. That's what Satoshi Nakamoto solved, was this last part, the Byzantine generals' problem. Pizza for Bitcoins. A year and a half after Satoshi Nakamoto laid out blockchain, Bitcoin, Somebody sent an email, and you'll get these slides, but this is the real live email. I'll pay you 10,000 Bitcoins for a couple of pizzas. I just want some pizzas. The guy who sent this, he says, I like onions, peppers, sausage, mushrooms. Laszlo. Now catch the date. This is May 18th, and he's offering 10,000 Bitcoins of 2010. But the key line is, what I'm aiming for is getting food delivered in exchange for Bitcoins. Nobody had used Bitcoins as a medium of exchange. 16 months into its existence, nobody had used it to buy something. And Laszlo, as a computer scientist in Florida, was just kind of interested, and he put this out on an email list. 3 days later, he still doesn't have his 2 pizzas. So nobody wants to buy me a pizza. Is the Bitcoin amount I'm offering too low? Another day goes by, he gets his pizzas, and he posts pictures. So here's a picture of his child reaching for those Papa John pizzas. Anybody know what those 10,000 Bitcoins were worth back then? Chicago.
I don't get work now.
Anybody want to say back then? What's that? $41. And Laszlo was saying 2 pizzas are probably worth 25 to 30, because there's a whole email thread. He kept saying, why won't anybody give me my pizzas? You can make money on this. Today, or earlier, last night, $66 million. Yeah, so it's a cute story. May 22nd every year is called Pizza Day or Bitcoin Pizza Day or something. So what is blockchain technology? These are my words, but they're sort of picked from the literature and so forth. It verifiably moves data on a decentralized network. And
Okay, well, I'm going to suggest that if you want to watch the rest of that, it's on YouTube, and it's very, very interesting. I would highly recommend it. Well, it's MIT. They know what they're talking about. And so they're talking about blockchain, and I would suggest that would be that's interesting. I have cryptocurrencies, and I prefer gold or silver coin, but certainly cryptocurrencies are a viable alternative, and it's better than bankster money by far. And so anyways, what we're going to talk about today is territorialism and traffic court, and some ways of dealing with things in traffic court. I was actually thinking about doing another cryptocurrency video, but I thought that guy really, he went into it in great detail and he goes, that whole video is very good. I was thinking about watching the rest of that course. I think there's all the videos are up on YouTube. I'm not sure, but it'd definitely be worth watching, because there's a lot of people out there that don't have any idea about cryptocurrencies, and at some point they're going to want to know. And I think that, if you listen to Penny Kelly, cryptocurrencies, we were listening to her yesterday, is created by the cabal, but they've lost control of it. And that doesn't mean they're not going to be still playing their games. And some people even think that they're going to maybe cut out the power, and you're going to have their mark to get online and things like that. And so then my attitude is that when that stuff happens, well, then that's when my gold and silver coin is going to come in handy. And so I'm, when I'm planning on, I've already been selling some cryptos so that I could buy silver, and I'm going to sell some more and buy some more silver. And so there's a lot of ways of playing that game. And so you should always diversify and have a variety of things, not just all the same stuff. There's a friend of mine, and I think it's a major mistake. But he's got 10 bitcoins, and I mean, having 10 bitcoins is okay. But well, he's got some silver too, but he doesn't have that much silver. And I don't know how much silver he's got. I know he's got 10 bitcoins, or at least he did at one point. Anyways, so I think that I like having a variety of different cryptocurrencies. Right now, Bitcoin's been basically doing nothing, and Ethereum has been going crazy, and there's other ones like Theta. Theta has been going up a lot, and so you never know which ones are going to be making their move. And so it's a good idea just to have a variety, diversify, and definitely have silver. If they cut off the power, then you can still get by, and so certainly get away from the fake money and the IOUs. Anyways, there's a few people that are on. We're going to go ahead and get started here this morning. I guess it's kind of Saturday, so there's like 18 people is showing that are on right now. But there's not a lot of, so I was looking to see if there's any questions or anything before we get going. The one that I want to do today is territorialism and traffic court. So we'll just go ahead and get started with that. Did he want anything? Was he wanting to sit in on this or anything?
Yeah, but this wasn't going to be helpful, but this would. I just texted him.
Oh,
like this is more real to his life. Right?
Yeah.
I just texted him. That kind of.
Yeah. Well, that was just until people came into the live stream.
Well,
that's all.
I didn't know that. So okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I texted him, but.
Okay. Okay. So do you want me to wait till he gets here?
Nope.
Okay. So first of all, I'm not a liar. Well, I meant a lawyer. No, it's a liar. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything, and I'm open to any ideas. Secondly, there's 4 types of people you'll meet in your life. There's people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? If you can see through the illusion, then you are the solution. If the people do not know their basic rights and freedoms, how can they know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? Never forget, the men who started this country were marijuana-growing, whiskey-drinking, tax-evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at the cops. And, George Washington was a hemp farmer. And have we ever gone away from our roots? We need to get back to our roots. I think that Trump is trying to get us back to our roots. I guess we'll see. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex. I don't trust the mainstream media. I don't trust the bankster criminal cabal that owns the government, owns the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex, owns the military industrial complex, and owns the mainstream media. If you call me a conspiracy theorist, I don't trust you. That's name calling anyways, is all it is. Government is not reason, it's not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. Wherever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. And people are waking up, but they need to wake up a lot more. An informed citizenry is at the heart of a dynamic democracy. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. A lot of these are Jefferson. It's kind of interesting. Jefferson was a child prodigy, 16 years old, and he had his own law practice. That's amazing by itself. It is and it isn't, I suppose, because he definitely understood the law. If once the people become inattentive to public affairs, you and I and Congress and assemblies and judges and governors shall all become wolves. It seems to be the law of our general nature in spite of individual exceptions. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. This is Article 4, Section 2 of the Constitution. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. And this is not just unique to America, okay? This is actually every country. Canada is the same, and every country, all countries, if you're subject to regulations, you are a slave, you are property. Canadian Ownership and Control Determination Act, owned means subject to the regulations. The Government Corporation Operation Act of Canada, every corporation for all its purposes is an agent of the bitch. You have to understand that you think the state of New Jersey is subject to Code of Federal Regulations? Of course they are. Well, that means that it's a territory, number one. That means that it is property of the United States. And so you have to understand the nature of what's going on. It's all territorial. It's territorialism. New Jersey, all the states, there's two jurisdictions in every state. There's New Jersey State and there's the state of New Jersey. New Jersey State is the land and the people. The state of New Jersey is a corporation that runs the government. And the government only deals with federal employees, government employees. That's the only jurisdiction that they have. You have to understand that. And they play their little games, but that's the bottom line. Ours may become the first civilization destroyed not by the power of our enemies, but by the ignorance of our teachers and the dangerous nonsense they're teaching our children. Well said. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. This is where the state of New Jersey is territorial. So it's really Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, District of Columbia. And again, that's federal. That's United States. That has nothing to do with New Jersey State. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square. You don't think the Founding Fathers understood the kind of stuff that was going to happen? That's why they put that in there. As may by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of government of the United States. And to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature. Now that's interesting. So you would think that like Fort Hood in Texas, big, huge military base, U.S. Army military base, You would think that that would fall into that, but actually it doesn't, because there was no legislative act that created Fort Hood. So therefore, it's not a federal enclave. So it says to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. It's got to be by the consent of the legislature. There's got to be a legislative act that cedes that land to the federal government. There's no land in Texas that's been ceded to the federal government. And yet there's all of these courthouses, there's all of these buildings. None of that's been ceded to the federal government. Ten federal regions. Get a load of this. The Department of the Pacific, the Department of the Rockies, the Department of the Southwest, the Department of the Prairies, the Department of the Mississippi, the Department of the South Atlantic, the Department of the Great Lakes, the Department of the Middle Atlantic, and the Department of New England. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Maybe this changed now. This was in New York Times Magazine, April 21st, 1935. This is not something new. This is something that's been going on for decades. It's probably changed now, but I would expect that these are basically zip code regions. That's what I would think. Except they've been changed a little bit because there's actually 10 of them. The zip code regions start at 0 and go to 9, so that makes 10. So I don't know how those zip code regions are, but they're probably a little bit different than these ones. Anyways, this was taken from the New York Times. Ted at abodia.com sent this to me. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which the Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington, District of Columbia. Through their plenary power, nationally covers those citizens, even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. So that's what a U.S. citizen is. That's why you use Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. International law rule. State statutes are not federal. Are national, I should say, are national. State statutes are national. Not federal, because it's a national government. It's a federal too in some circumstances, but the state statutes are all territorial, which makes them national. International law rule adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction federalizes state civil law, including the common law. The rule serves to federalize not only statutory but the common law of a state. State and federal venue discussed. The civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction are a federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state laws, and a cause arising under such laws may be brought in or removed to federal district court under 28 U.S.C. 1331 and 1441. And that's taken from Jurisdiction Over Federal Areas Within the States, report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction Over Federal Areas Within the States, Part 2, a text of the law of legislative jurisdictions submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President June 1957. And that's taken from pages 158 through 165. So, anyways, so we're in a medical dictatorship that's all territorial. You got to understand that. It's all territorial. Governors like Abbott are issuing their edicts under their military dictatorship. Executive orders ensure excuse me, to ensure their property, you, is safe. You, if you think you're subject to those edicts. So we need to slap edict. We need to slap Abbott and get him out of office since he thinks he can go and issue these executive orders. And executive orders are not law. Executive orders are a color of law. Executive orders are equivalent to regulations, and regulations are for government property. Color means an appearance, a semblance, or a simulacrum, as distinguished from that which is real, a prima facie or apparent right, hence a deceptive appearance, a plausible assumed exterior, concealing a lack of reality, a disguise, or a pretext. Colorable means that which is in appearance only and not in reality what it purports to be, hence counterfeit, feigned, having the appearance of truth. In other words, it's a lie. Gee, that sounds like something liars would do. Oh, I meant lawyers. No, I meant liars. That's why I just filed bar grievances against the bastards. I don't even talk to them. There's no use in trying to talk to them. I can't tell you how many people have said, well, maybe I'll just call them up and talk to them. They're just going to lie to you. I mean, what does the Bible say? The Bible says that there's no truth in them. If they lie, then there's no truth in them. Color of law means the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. Misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because wrongdoer is clothed with authority of state is action taken under color of law. Everything they do, this is all coming from bar members, folks. So next week we're going to be talking about bar grievances, and so that's what we need to be doing. Is filing bar grievances.
They are lying to you. They don't want you to know that you can now get a PPP loan in as little as 60 seconds. I'm going to teach you how you can do it in this quick 2-minute video. I'm Matt Smith from Milwaukee, and I'm a DoorDash driver. I deliver groceries, and I still was approved for over 20,000.
They do. This is all coming from bar members, folks. So next week we're going to be talking about bar grievances, and so that's what we need to be doing. Is filing bar grievances.
They are lying to you. They don't want you to know that you can now get a PPP loan.
All right, go ahead. I'll have to figure out how to get the volume down.
Okay, so I'm just checking to see if we have any questions. Doesn't look like it so far. A few more people have showed up. So we'll keep moving. This is Article 6, Clause 2. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. In other words, doesn't matter what any state constitution or any state statute says. And this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof. That means not all the laws may be subject to the Constitution either. So there could be, that's where color of law comes in again. That's where these Congress whores get mixed up in it. Anyways, and Article 9, an amendment. This is probably the best article and amendment of all, in my opinion. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. At common law, we have unlimited rights. Our rights are unlimited. Every citizen and freeman is endowed with certain rights and privileges to enjoy which no written law or statute is required. These are fundamental and natural rights recognized among all free people. As a general rule, men have the natural right to do anything which their inclination may suggest, if it be not evil in itself and in no way impairs the rights of others. At common law, rights are unlimited. And that's what's so evil about this military dictatorship, because they have to define the rights. And when they define the rights, then obviously they're not going to get all your common law rights, and they're going to have they have statutes that for common law crimes, and they conveniently forget to create statutes for some common law crimes, and then they create crimes for things that are not common law crimes. And so we need to put an end to the martial law, folks. But meanwhile, we're dealing with it. And so actually we can put an end to the martial law, is we the people need to wake up and start convening our common law juries and our grand juries. That's exactly how we end the martial law. Because the only reason they have martial law is because we the people are asleep at the wheel. It's the matrix. Everything is an illusion. Things are not what they appear. That's why at the beginning, I show those slides about the matrix. Article 1 of the Libre Code. A place, district, or country occupied by an enemy stands in consequence of the occupation under the martial law of the invading or occupying army. Whether any proclamation declaring martial law or any public warning to the inhabitants has been issued or not. Martial law is the immediate and direct effect and consequence of occupation or conquest. The presence of a hostile army proclaims its martial law. That's Article 1 of the Libre Code. Article 2, martial law does not cease during a hostile occupation except by special proclamation ordered by the commander-in-chief or by special mention in the Treaty of Peace concluding the war, when the occupation of a place or territory continues beyond the conclusion. Anyways, so I can tell you that everybody knows there was a civil war, and there has been no Treaty of Peace, so there couldn't possibly be a special mention, and there's been no proclamations either. Now, the southern, or I should say California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada, and Utah, parts of Utah, there's a bunch of states that came into America as part of the Treaty of Hidalgo because of the Spanish-American War in the 1840s. And now there was a Treaty of Peace there. It's called the Treaty of Hidalgo. But there's no special mention of ending the martial law. That's why you see the police wearing military uniforms. In the old days, what did they wear? The county sheriff would have a star, and that's it.
What did the local constables or whatever have? Like, was the county sheriff the only law in the whole county?
Yeah, pretty well, yeah. Yeah. There was U.S. Marshals then.
No, but I mean, like, say Philadelphia was a city, but it was also a county. They were the same.
Right. Well, the city would have police, but those were all military police. You got to understand. Remember the Pinkertons. Pinkertons were private police. That's what became ultimately the city police and stuff like that. Remember the Pinkertons, eh? Mm-hmm. They were basically private police. Yeah, private security. Mm-hmm. Right?
So I'm thinking, like, in 1810, what was going on in New York City as far as law or who took care of law enforcement at that time if it wasn't the county sheriff and saved the city of New York?
Yeah, I would suspect that cities like New York probably had police of some sort.
So was that municipal law at that time?
I would say it probably was.
So that was martial law at that time?
Well, no, because remember, it says in the cause and necessities for taking up arms, it says that municipal laws are stretched far beyond their
Ancient limits.
right.
Just a rhetorical question.
Right.
As we, because I want to try to understand what was going on when we were supposedly
Right.
not having federal martial law.
Right.
Like, was it? Is mankind always been under martial laws?
Well, there's it was like we were talking, the magistrate. The magistrate is who you're supposed to take like criminal complaints to, but there's only certain people that are magistrates. The governor's a magistrate, the mayor's a magistrate, judges, some judges, not all judges are magistrates. And it'll tell you who's a magistrate in the codes. I wonder if I suppose the city judge is a magistrate, but not all judges, from what I'm gathering, and I'm still looking into it, not all judges are magistrates. And so you want a magistrate. I mean, the president's a magistrate. He's the chief magistrate. You see what I'm saying?
Under martial law.
Well, no, just the chief magistrate, period. And that has nothing to do with martial law.
Right.
But the president has to make a proclamation. The commander-in-chief, under the Libra Code, the president has to make a proclamation saying that the martial law is ending. And it's never happened. And I wonder, I'll bet you the reason it hasn't happened is because Congress is not de jure. It's an unconstitutional corporation that's operating, and they don't have any authority to end it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so when they convene a lawful Congress, then they can end the martial law. And one of the things they have to do before they can do that is they got to have lawful money. And before they can do that, they got to have a balance of trade. I mean, these bankster thieves know what they're doing. I mean, they've been doing it for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't just been here. It's been all over the place. Mm-hmm. And so they got to have a balance of trade. It doesn't do any good to have gold or silver coin as lawful money if there's no balance of trade, because you'll be essentially shipping your gold overseas. Mm-hmm. And so they have to have lawful money. They have to have a balance of trade so that you're not shipping your gold overseas. And Trump was working on that, but obviously he didn't get finished, or I think he's still working on it. But they certainly stopped shipping jobs overseas, and they're starting to bring them back, but that takes time. It doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
So, anyways. Article 10 of the General Orders 100, which is the Libra Code, martial law affects chiefly the police and the collection of revenue and taxes, whether imposed by the expelled government or by the invader, and refers mainly to the support and efficiency of the army, its safety, and the safety of its operations. This just speaks volumes. This one article, because think about it. This medical dictatorship, okay? They're always worried about, we want you to be safe. Well, mind your own damn business. It's all evidence of the martial law. The police and the collection of public revenue, okay, the IRS, any of these taxing authorities operate under martial law, and you have to go with the crux of the matter, okay, and the foundational thing that they deal with is the military script, and so you got to get away from the military script, or at least object to it. You got to object to it. And that's why I put in my videos that I prefer gold or silver coin. But as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the fake money, and I call it fake money. because it is fake money. Martial law creates a democracy, is what it does, and then you have it's mob rule, and that's what they want. Ex parte Milligan just describes the three kinds of martial law. I'm not sure that it does. I don't think it nullifies martial law. Yeah, I think Biden is. Basically an idiot. Matter of fact, I think he's a criminal, and they have the goods on him, and he's doing what they tell him to do. Okay, so let's keep moving here. So this Article 10 of Libra Code speaks volumes about the police, about taxes, about safety. And that's why it's obvious that we're under a medical dictatorship right now. And that's the New World Order, New World slave flag right there. That is so well. See, this is ex parte Milligan, or parts of it. There's three kinds of martial law. There's full martial law. Declaration of martial law is issued. Troops are put on the street, used only during wartime, used in foreign country when actually invaded by foreign power to put down an armed rebellion. Martial law proper is the law of the armed forces. When a captain tells a private what to do, it's enforced by court-martials. And martial law rule is the law of necessity and emergency. Allows the domestic use of martial law powers. It's used during peacetime. It can continue for centuries during a military occupation. And that's taken from ex parte Milligan, but it's cited in this non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ella to the Utah Supreme Court related to the case Diet versus Turner. Now, I would recommend everybody get that book. It's really quite an easy read. It is full of all sorts of jewels about the law. And that guy, well, he was a judge, so he knew what was going on. And he goes through and just explains all sorts of stuff. Now, somebody in the chat was saying that ex parte Milligan nullified the Libra Code. And you know, I haven't read the whole case. I've read some of it. I mean, there's quite a bit there to read. So I'm not saying that's not true. That would be interesting. I need to probably get that thing out and read it. Anyways, so let's keep moving here. My book is now available, the Trump book. Trump, a true American patriot or not? I wrote the book. Mike Blackwell actually is the guy that published the book. He asked me to write the book back in about a year ago, last January, and it took me about 2 weeks to write the book. But then he had to babysit me through the whole process of publishing it, getting it ready to publish, and getting it published. And so that took about 6 months. It was published last July, so there will be nothing in it that's after that. But so what the book is about, it's about the deep state and who they are and where they came from and how they got there and their history. For example, it talks about the two national governments. Did you know there's two national governments? There's actually a Supreme Court case that talks about it. Downs versus Bidwell, in the dissenting opinion. it says there's two national governments. One operates within the Constitution and the other one does not. And so
Question on Downs versus Bidwell.
uh-huh.
I noticed the date was like in the 1900s or late 1800s.
1901.
So, would that have been the same decision if that case had been held in 1850? Two national governments.
No, it wouldn't have been for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason is that what happened was in the Articles of Confederation, Article 1, it says that the style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. And then what happened is the southern states walked out of Congress and they ceased to have a quorum. They couldn't conduct business. And so Lincoln ordered them back under executive authority, and they've been operating under executive authority ever since. And in 1871, they created a corporation called United States of America. And so if you look, like, for example, on a land patent, you'll see the United States of America. You'll see it also on Federal Reserve notes, but it's all block capital letters. Now, so that might be a shadow corporation similar to it, but not the same. I'm not sure. I mean, they don't tell people. You have to look through their stuff and try and find evidence of things. So, but it still says on a Federal Reserve note, it says the United States of America, and on silver certificates back when the United States, when there was silver certificates, they had the United States of America. So, I guess what I'm saying is that there's two separate entities. There's those two at least. There's a lot of people that say there's more, and there could be. I wouldn't doubt it for a minute. But those are the two that I can prove. And now, so what happened is in 1933, you'll see that United States of America. You'll see it all over the place. You'll see it on your passport. You'll see it on Air Force One. You'll see it on Silver Eagles. You'll see that one all over the place. Anyways, so what happened is in 1933, that corporation went bankrupt and it was seized by its creditors. And it's now owned and operated by somebody. And the evidence of that is on the speaker's podium in the U.S. House of Representatives. You'll see two Roman fasci on each side of the speaker's podium, and you'll see a military staff, a Roman staff that's planted on the right side of the speaker's podium, planted on all conquered nations. So that's the evidence. Further evidence is that when Pelosi gets up there and says, we can't read this bill until after we pass it, she's obviously taken orders from her handlers. So, and there's lots of evidence. That's why they pass all these codes that are so deceptive, and there's a lot of color of law. There's loads of color of law, and that's all. I think it's all been happening since the bankruptcy, the Roman cult owns the corporation, and they're operating it as their own criminal racketeering enterprise. Now, so that happened in 1933. Now, what happened is, I think, and so Trump, I think, he's a pretty smart guy, and he issued this executive order in 2018 about foreign interference in our elections, and so then what happened is these Dominion voting machines. There's evidence that they were transmitting their data through an Italian satellite that was leased to the Vatican, and so this came out last like November, December timeframe, and when it did come out, the Vatican government fell, and there was a big Vatican, or I should say, not the Vatican government, the Italian government fell, and there was a big Italian defense contractor that heads rolled, and CEO resigned. There's a bunch of board members that got, I think they're in jail, quite frankly. That's why the troops are in DC, because they seized DC back. And I think that's what's happening. And I was listening on a video, the video we were listening to yesterday before our presentation. It was with Jean-Claude Beyond Mystic. It was published on the very end of April. So it's like, 2 weeks old at the most, with Penny Kelly. And Jean-Claude said that he was interviewing someone else, and they went to DC and they were taking pictures, and they were all amazed that the grass around the White House was all overgrown. And they said it's normally manicured, and it was all overgrown, and there was no groundskeepers, and there was nothing being taken care of. And I think that's what's happened, is they've seized DC back. That's why the troops are there. They seized DC back from the Roman cult, and I've heard that actually they found another place to be for a new capital too. I guess we'll see. I don't know how all of that's going to play out. I've heard that the new capital will be somewhere near Kansas City in Missouri. So I guess we'll see. It's rumors. It's all rumors. And so these are all things that I'm just hearing, and it's just rumors. And so I just got to try and put things together as much as anybody else does. So, but that's what I think is. I think that, I don't know if anybody knows Jerome Corsi. Jerome Corsi he was actually a guy that was indicted in the Mueller investigation, and he knows Roger Stone. Anyways, he went and he's got a YouTube channel. He's written a bunch of books. He's got a PhD in political science. Anyways, there's a YouTube video with Jerome Corsi where he says that he was visited in 2015 by 5 generals. And they said that there was a group of generals in the Pentagon that were going to overthrow Obama. And he said, well, you can do that if you want, but you might want to go talk to Donald Trump first. And so 3 months later, he gets a phone call. They decided not to overthrow Obama because Donald Trump had agreed to run for president. So I guess what my point is that with all of this is that I think that the entire Trump administration, and even continues right now, is a big giant military psyop. Did you know there's a war college in the Pentagon? Yes, there is. And if you look at any officer's resume, they're just about guaranteed to have something about the war college on it, especially officers that have been there for a while. And so there's a war college in the Pentagon. They study warfare. That's exactly what they should be studying. And so the most important part of warfare is, why did an inferior enemy defeat a superior? Why did an inferior force defeat a superior force? It's called psychological warfare. And so I think it's all a big giant military psyop. I think it's still going on. And how it's all going to play out, I have no idea. I'm certainly not in the loop. All I can do is do my own research. And that's why I like the law, because the law is provable. And yes, there can be lies in a court case, but there's a lot of evidence, and it's more likely to be true than other things. It's certainly more true than what's in the media. They're just nothing but a bunch of liars. And so I don't trust them at all. Matter of fact, I haven't watched any Fox News or any of that garbage in months. And I just watch YouTube videos. This is what I watch. Anyways, so this is my book about Trump, and it talks about all of the stuff. I do aerospace engineering consulting. I was taught to always support everything I say. So this book is full of all sorts of court citations, law dictionary definitions, international treaties. So I would recommend anybody that they should read it and see what's going on, come to their own conclusion, because that's why I said I present the evidence, you come to your own conclusion. And that's why I say Trump a true American patriot or not. I would encourage anybody to get the book. You can get it on Amazon or you can buy it off my website. This is the back of the book. And this thing right here at the bottom here, this actually was written by the publisher. It wasn't written by me. Anyways, it says, does Donald Trump want to transfer back to we the people? In Trump, you will see the great battle that is upon us. And they hit the nail on the head with that, I'll tell you. Anyways, the book is available on Amazon or from my website. It's $30 plus shipping. If you order from my website, it'll come autographed. Amazon does not provide autographed books. And if you do order from my website and you want the autograph to say something in particular, make sure and put that down when you order it. And so that I don't mind putting, whatever you want me to put on that autograph. But yeah, you can buy the book. You can get it on Amazon or my website. And I would prefer you get it on my website because then I can autograph it. And I get more from my website than I do from Amazon, quite frankly. Anyways, you want to know the origins of the deep state? Who's behind it? Do you want to know why it's called the Trump administration or the Biden administration? I think that right now that Trump has or is in the process of restoring the republic, and Biden, he's just a CEO of a bankrupt corporation. I think that's what the case is. Matter of fact, I think that, well, I mean, we just listened to Jean-Claude Beyond Mystic here yesterday. If you listened on that the beginning of yesterday's morning session, I was playing Penny Kelly, and then we're talking about that. Anyways, I think the White House is not occupied. I think that everything that Biden does is on a movie set, and I think that probably the reason he tripped going up those steps on Air Force One is because it was a movie set, and it wasn't really Air Force One there, and the steps were all screwed up. I bet you they screwed up the steps because it was all just a movie set. And anyways, so you want to know what an administration is? It's in the book. Do you want to know how Trump came to be president? I think we just talked about that. Do you want to know who owns Congress? We just talked about that too. Do you want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? It's in the book. Do you want to know how you have become a slave? Well, you have and you haven't. It's all by contracts. I can tell you that. It's privileges. There's actually a Supreme Court case called Carlisle versus United States in 1873. And it says, everyone not privileged is sovereign. And so if you take advantage of their privileges, then you are their slave. And think about it. If you're paying taxes, then they're forcing you to work for nothing. Gee, that sounds like slavery. I've been to the Supreme Court twice with the IRS, and they don't want to talk to me now, and I kind of like it that way. And you know how they get you? They get you because you're discharging debt with limited liability by using Federal Reserve notes. That's how they get you. It's about the money. And we got to have lawful money. That's what we were talking about earlier. We absolutely have to have lawful money. And so it's because you're discharging debts with limited liability. Anyways, do you want to know what the root cause of the War of Independence was? Well, I can tell you it's the same cause that's going on today. It's the same cause that it's always the same stuff that keeps coming back around. And it's in the book. You want to know why every president goes to visit the Pope on their first international trip? Have you noticed that? If you haven't, then you should take a notice, take a look. On their first international trip, every president goes to see the pimp. Well, I meant the Pope. Nah, the pimp. It's in the book. In reality, they're not after me. They're after you. I'm just in the way. They got him out of the way now. And we need to step up and start taking care of business. That's why we need to form our common law juries and our grand juries, and we need to help him do what he's doing. And I think that's the best way to do it, is by basically making a statement by forming our common law juries and our grand juries. Martial law is the public law of necessity, calls it forth. Necessity calls it forth. Necessity justifies its exercise. Necessity measures the extent and degree to which it may be employed. That necessity is no formal, artificial, legalistic concept, but an actual and factual one that is the necessity of taking action to safeguard the state against insurrection, riot, disorder, or public calamity. What constitutes necessity is a question of fact in each case. Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. Well, get a load of this. Let's go back here. Oh, look at that. Martial law rule. The law of necessity and emergency allows the domestic use of martial law powers used during peace times can continue for centuries during a military occupation. U.S. Supreme Court, Ex Parte Milligan. The law of necessity. Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. The tyrants argue it, and the slaves say, oh yeah, it's an emergency. We need to do this because we're a bunch of brain-dead idiots. William Pitt the Younger, speech in the House of Commons, November 18th, 1783. Do you think this is anything new? It is definitely nothing new. Same thing has been going on for centuries, thousands of years. Actually, if you look in that figure in Daniel, it started back when with the Babylonian Empire. The action of Congress and the passage of the first Legal Tender Act was placed distinctly upon the ground of the existing imperative need. They probably should have used the word necessity. And the legal tender clause was urged and adopted as a war measure. Necessity. No state shall coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold or silver coin, and tender in the payments of the debts. And there's no lawful money in general circulation since 1965, and this is probably the single or certainly one of the most useful things in the Constitution that you can remind them of and break it off in their backside because there's no lawful money in general circulation. How do you want me to pay this? That's what my Form 1020 goes through. Go to my YouTube channel and watch my Form 1020 videos. I've got 2 of them. How do you want me to pay this? They'll never answer you. Under their Texas Business and Commerce Code, this is international law. Money means a medium of exchange currently authorized or adopted by the domestic or foreign government. The term includes a monetary unit of account established by an intergovernmental organization or by agreement between 2 or more countries. So again, that's Texas Business and Commerce Code, also known as the Uniform Commercial Code. That is actually called private international law. You go to UNIDROIT is what regulates the Texas Business Commerce Code or the Uniform Commercial Code. It's all regulated by UNIDROIT. Party by UNIDROIT under international law, private international law. As distinguished from third party, they always throw that stuff in there to get people confused. Anyways, means a person has engaged in a transaction, made an agreement subject to this title, subject to the Uniform Commercial Code, an agreement, a contract. You cannot be a party if there's no contract. So they can't just assault you and then make you a party. Okay, that's called perjury of oath because they all have an oath to support the Constitution. International law is not sovereign. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen, where private corporate commercial paper, Federal Reserve notes, and securities checks is concerned. For purposes of suit, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. Clearfield Trust Company versus United States, 1942. Remember, that's just shortly after the bankruptcy too, right? That's when everything started to change. I've even heard, and I'm still looking for evidence of this. I've heard that in the 30s, that when people immigrated here, we'll say in the 20s, well, in the 20s, when people immigrated here, they were actually given the choice of whether they wanted to be a U.S. citizen or a state citizen. And most of the people were brain dead idiots. They didn't have a clue. They were foreigners coming here. They had no idea, really, in all defense to them. And they said, oh, I want to be a U.S. citizen. Anyways, yeah, don't get me going. You're going to get me going here. Let's see if anybody's got any comments. Yes, some states have passed legislation for gold to silver coin, but it's still not in general circulation. I know Utah's one. I think Texas has. I'm not sure which ones. I don't think it really matters because the question is the problem is it's not in general circulation. And in order for them to tell you to pay it, it has to be in general circulation. And so you can still argue the Form 1020 and do all that stuff. Governments lose their immunity and descend to the level of private corporations when involved in commercial activity, enforcing negotiable instruments as in fine, penalties, assessment, bails, taxes. The remedy lies in the hands of the state and its municipality seeking remedy. If they go into commercial activity, then that comes down, you remind them of their oath of office and perjury of oath and sedition and all that stuff. Congress claiming its martial law power to declare war, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. Gee, that sounds like necessity. Imposed martial law in the United States and never discontinued it. The result was an extension of military and municipal jurisdiction to Congress. Where's the evidence of this? Look at the 13th Amendment, Civil Rights Act, the legal tender laws, the 14th Amendment, municipal jurisdiction. Remember, we were talking about that a little while ago. And that's taken from the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Dred versus Turner. It's a really good book. It's only 150 pages and it's double spaced, so it's a pretty quick, easy read. Got loads of jewels in it. The 14th Amendment is an extension of national military powers presently used in a municipal character and enforced by municipal laws, stretch far beyond their original limitations and enforced by Article I tribunals. And that's, again, the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge H. Ellett in the Utah Supreme Court in the case Dred versus Turner. More stuff on that municipal laws that we were talking about. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the courts of common law, instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial, and for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter. We saw the misery to which such despotism, dictatorship would reduce us. And that causes a necessity for taking up arms. Necessity again, right? Necessity for taking up arms. Founding fathers even used it to defend themselves. The refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulators, was probably the prime cause of the revolution. Again, they wanted people to be able to discharge their debt with limited liability because they didn't want to have lawful money, and they wanted to impose all sorts of contracts. That's a privilege. Why do you think that these illegal aliens, when they come to the country, they give them free health care, free this, free that? They got to get them in a contract. And once they get them in a contract, they're not sovereign anymore. Start doing negotiable instruments, and now all of a sudden they're not sovereign anymore. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government, and so we can convene our common law juries and our grand juries. That's where our republican form of government is. They'll tell you that if you vote, well, that's not true, because look what they did with the last election. They just stole the election. So voting has nothing to do with the Republican form of government. Right? But in considering the question before us, it must be borne in mind that there is no law of nations standing between the people of the United States and their government and interfering with their relation to each other. The powers of the government and the rights of the citizens under it are positive and practical regulations. Plainly written down, the people of the United States have delegated to it certain enumerated powers and forbidden it to exercise others. And that's Dred Scott versus Sanford, U.S. Supreme Court. And there's actually a Supreme Court case, and I can't think of it right now, the site, but it says that emergency and necessity are not a good excuse. Let me find it. That'd be a good one to hear.
Now, if Dred Scott versus Sanford was overturned with Brown versus Board of Education.
Yeah, but that's still, that doesn't mean that everything in it is not valuable.
Okay.
These are just cites out of it. And that's a Supreme Court case. So the Supreme Court basically overturned their opinion. And Dred Scott versus Sanford was a guy. Dred Scott, I think, was a black guy, and Sanford was a county sheriff. And actually, Dred Scott took place in 1857.
Right. So
that's before the Civil War.
right. So how does that affect the fact that the Supreme Courts were potentially empowered through they were obligated to decide based on a different situation?
Yeah, well, that everything had changed. I'd have to look at Brown versus Board of Education and what it says. Basically, it said, I think if I remember right, Dred Scott versus Sanford, it was over a habeas corpus, if I remember right. And the Supreme Court said that Sanford didn't have the right to take advantage of the habeas corpus, I think. This was the general jux to the whole case. You see what I'm saying? Or I should say Dred Scott didn't have the right to petition for a habeas corpus.
Right, because he was property.
Because he was property, that's right. And so Brown versus Board of Education overturned that, which they probably should have. Again, our courts, it's all full of Masons.
I was arguing with a friend of mine who happens to be black, And he, talking to him, gave me the understanding at the moment that the reason Brown versus Board of Education succeeded was because the military martial law, which was in place when the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were passed. So they've had to use martial military rule to enforce the territorial jurisdiction and basically take state sovereignty out of it because the southern states refused to submit.
Right. That's interesting.
Right. So he doesn't even understand what I'm understanding because from his perspective, all he knows is that 14th and 15th Amendment is his salvation
Right.
of during his lifetime.
Right.
But it's actually martial law rule, and so the Supreme Court in Brown versus Board of Education had the the foundation of 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to work from, along with the fact that we're still under military. Basically, the federal government came in and took the role of they took full state sovereignty away, meaning when they lost.
I think that, yeah. So I can see what he's saying.
Right.
Before 1857, there was no 14th Amendment.
Correct.
Now there's a 14th Amendment.
Correct.
And it's territorial.
Correct.
And so in that territory, then he's entitled to a habeas corpus.
Right. And so, basically the South was so, and my friend talks about the fact that Reconstruction was going along fine under Ulysses S. Grant. And then there was a presidential election of Tilden versus Rutherford B. Hayes, which was a tie. And the deal that was made to give Rutherford B. Hayes the presidency was he would remove the federal troops because the black lawmakers were flooding state and local and federal seats through Reconstruction under the federal occupation of the South.
Right.
For the first 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Rutherford B. This is part of it is his understanding of what happened because he studied it, and then I'm saying, well, okay, from my perspective, here's what I'm seeing. The Rutherford B. Hayes pulled the troops out, and that's what gave rise back to the Jim Crow and the voting rights, because the blacks had so many people down there, one man, one vote during Reconstruction. It was a done deal for the blacks versus the whites. The whites couldn't win.
Right.
Because of just sheer numbers.
Right.
And that came from the 14th and 15th Amendment, which was a military imposed amendment because the Congress didn't allow the South to vote because they weren't part of the Congress.
Well, except for Tennessee. But Tennessee,
right. But overall,
Reconstruction didn't affect Tennessee.
Right.
But you're right. They wouldn't let them vote in Congress, right? Until they passed those amendments. They were forced. They were completely unconstitutional.
Right, but my friend's point was, well, they lost, even though you and I know there's no treaty, right? It was a surrender.
It was an armistice.
Yeah, which means they should have the Congress.
Just a ceasefire.
The Congress should have brought back the representation government from the South, and they didn't do that.
No,
they kept them out, so they could enforce the martial law on the South because the South still had they still were saying slavery.
Well, I think quite frankly that Lincoln wanted it to end up other ways.
Right, but he was killed.
He was killed, and Grant was a military general,
right. I mean, they gave most of the southern lowlands of southern South Carolina for the first 10 years of Reconstruction to the blacks. They were building plantations. It was 400,000 acres or something like that, beautiful land. And then as soon as Rutherford B. Hayes and they removed the troops, because it was under martial law, and meaning whatever at the end of the day, it was not common law. So all the blacks lost everything they thought they had been given, and they went back to the Jim Crow, and the whites, that's why kind of the agony of what we've been
Right.
through.
Right.
But they had to enforce everything. My understanding is they enforced everything through sending the troops to the South,
Right.
federal troops. And that still exists today
I know.
through our system of
Yeah.
what you've explained.
Right.
That's where I'm at today,
Right.
understanding A, what happened, B, why we're here, and C, why we can't go back to.
Although, what's his name? Rick Perry, when he was governor, he actually, I saw him say it was either on TV or it was on, I think it was on TV. He said that we're preparing to become a independent nation.
Recently?
That's for Texas. Yeah,
Recently?
Rick Perry was governor. That was like before Abbott.
And then what happened?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, things like that are very subtle. You know what I mean? I mean, Texas really never has been part of the United States once you understand, what's going on and how it's going on, except for the military occupation. But
Well,
there are some things in the Texas Constitution that are very, very, like it says, there's one thing that says the land of Texas shall always belong to the people of Texas. And so, I mean, there's a East Coast power grid, there's a West Coast power grid, and there's a Texas power grid. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. I learned that through what happened.
Yeah. And so Texas is, it's like its own whole other country by itself anyways, who knows? I mean, you've got to just do your research and try and figure out what went on, and
Right.
anyways, it's interesting here that we're talking about necessity. This is a case called Home Building and Loan Association versus Blaisdell, and U.S. Supreme Court, 1934, says emergency does not create power. Emergency does not increase granted power, remove or diminish the restrictions imposed upon power granted or reserved. The Constitution was adopted in a period of great emergency. Its grants of power to the federal government and its limitations of the power to the states were determined in light of emergency, and they are not altered by any emergency. So, again,
What Constitution are they referring to?
federal Constitution.
But why was it a period of grave emergency?
Well, think about it. I mean, cause and necessity of taking up arms?
No, this says the Constitution, not the Articles of Confederation, not the Declaration of Independence.
Well, it was a period of grave emergency. Well, the everything that brought about the Constitution was certainly a period of grave emergency.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And the states were risking they were risking another invasion by somebody if we didn't get the federal boats out there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
That was the problem.
Needed the federal government to be able to fund a navy, I think, is probably a big part of it.
That was a grave emergency.
Yeah. Anyways, purpose of a Republican form of government is to shield we the people from international law. This is that case that I was talking about with my book. Two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. And that's Downs versus Bidwell, 1901, U.S. Supreme Court. The style of this confederacy, that's what I was talking about earlier, shall be the United States of America. It's found in the Articles of Confederation. Passport is a written document given to a person or persons by a commander of belligerent forces authorizing him or them to travel unmolested within the district occupied by his troops. The passports are issued by State Department or similar offices in other countries to diplomatic agents and others entering or traveling in foreign countries, which are the same general character as those issued during war. The latter should, when practicable, have the photograph of the bearer attached. And this is taken from the Rules of Land Warfare, 1914 edition, Passport Safe Conduct, Safeguards and Cartels, Chapter 7, Section 4, Article 276, page 100. And that is a silver certificate. And notice it says the United States of America. I was talking about that earlier. But it says it's all black capital letters. Now,
What's the date of the issue?
silver certificate,
Like, dates to me are mattering.
1957.
Okay.
Let me find, I was gonna.
Because to me, this is all private money
It is.
with the capital letters.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm thinking even.
Well, the silver certificate, though, was backed up by gold, by silver. It says you can go and get $1 of silver from the Treasury if you want.
Yeah, but somehow, okay, I don't know how that's true. That it was not a private bank.
What do you mean? Oh, the Federal Reserve wasn't, but the silver certificate wasn't issued by the Federal Reserve. It was issued by the Treasury. It's got U.S. Treasury on it.
How's that different than U.S. Treasury today? The Federal Reserve Bank was printing the money.
No, I don't think so. Not when it was silver certificates. Federal Reserve Bank wasn't printing the money.
Silver certificate, so this doesn't say Federal Reserve note on it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it says U.S. Treasury.
So this was issued by the Treasury, but then somewhere, now they just say Secretary of the Treasury. They don't give the office of the Treasury, maybe. Like, one just has to start looking at.
Well, now it says Federal Reserve note, so it says the seal on it is
So there was still lawful money circulating by virtue of this silver certificate.
right.
Because this was circulating with that being a dollar on demand, a silver dollar on demand.
Right.
But was that good for one silver dollar is my question.
Well, it says on it that you can go get says $1 payable to the bearer on demand. So it would have been, if you go to the Coinage Act of 1792, that's $1 would be 400 grains of silver, right?
Interesting. That was solid money. I was noticing in that Monetary Act that the United States of America was supposed to be on the coin in the proper form, upper and lower case, and it never was.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I don't know how or why that. I'm not sure.
Just mentioning it in case anyone ever happens upon that. We need to kind of track that.
Right.
Because that could be a clue to the municipality of the all caps on our coins, and most, if not all, of our paper money.
Yeah. Why is it all caps versus upper and lower case? Other than
right, I believe I read in the Coinage Act it was upper and lower case. Or one of the Coinage Act amendments, because they have different ones as time goes on as they issue new money,
right.
authorizing new money to be coined.
Okay, so there it's showing it on a land patent. That's one of the railroad land patents, where it's the United States of America in upper and lower case.
$1856.
Yeah. Well, but that's actually that land patent is well, it talks about an act of Congress, 1866. Yeah.
66, right.
I'm just looking at the comments and see if there's any questions. Bitcoin is not owned by anybody. It's public domain.
Would you say that